Hello everyone, welcome back. What I want to talk about today is fighting from the bind, and basically the bind is where the two swords have met, and we're fighting for control of the center. Um, we don't want to let go or leave the bind because we have a small defense, and that's going to be the case if we're using a long sword or any basically two-handed sword, or if we're using a buckler. So here I have a buckler. Same deal, this small buckler does not give me a whole lot of defense. So I'm basically forced to kind of keep the two together. So when I strike, okay, basically the buckler and the sword become one. And the way I see the sword and the small buckler is this is the weak of the blade, this is the strong over here, okay, and this is the strongest part of my sword and buckler weapon set. Okay, so I see this as a weapon set when you have a sword and a buckler. The two work together, and the two are pretty much going to fight together. With a small buckler like this, I'm either regardless of whether I'm fighting like this or whether I'm fighting around the buckler like this. Um, you know, in either case, the buckler and the sword are being fought as a connected offense defense, as opposed to if I'm using a larger shield. Okay, now I have a disconnected offense defense. With a large shield, I can hold the shield out and the sword can work completely independent of the shield. Now when you have a large buckler like what I have here, or a small shield, so this is either a large buckler or a small shield, but anytime you have anything that's approaching this size, you're now able to fight an independent offense defense, okay? As opposed to a buckler about this size, where now you have a connected offense defense. In this particular case, my opponent, if he's got a buckler like this, basically this simulates a sword over here. If he's got a buckler about that size, he's at a slight advantage because he can, his sword can work completely independent of his parrying device. Okay, whereas my sword and my shield have to basically work together because this really doesn't offer me a whole lot of defense by itself. So what I want to do now is I want to I'm going to put the buckler down, and we're going to talk about different options from the bind. Okay, I'm going to first go through with the long sword because a lot of what we're going to talk about comes out of Lichtenauer system. And then, as we look at Lichtenauer, and then we look at either 133 or we look at Lignitzer's, particularly play number 2, we see that there's a lot of similarity. A lot of the words that are sometimes used are similar, so there's a definite connection there. So since we have a lot more information available to us in the longsword system, I'm going to start from there and then apply the longsword stuff to the buckler. Okay, so let's put this down. So with the longsword, I come. First option is I come into measure. My opponent is weak in the bind. Okay, I'm able to get my point. In line with his face, and basically I'm just going to thrust through. Now, one of the options is as I come in, I can also step to the sides. So if my opponent is, steps to the side, I can also step to the side, and I can angulate my thrust. Okay, so once I'm in this bind, I do have some options, as far as directing my point. I can aim the tip of the sword. Okay, so that's one of the options there. So that's the first option. Okay, so we come in. Okay, we come into the bind and we thrust through. What could also happen is when we close in, if there's a possibility that if we close in, I'm able to strike at the same time. So this is a situation now where he's stepped into me, he's past my point, so I'm basically going to strike him. Okay, to me that's kind of the same thing. If your opponent is slightly out of range when you bind, you're going to follow through with a thrust. If he's slightly in range and past your point, you're going to turn it into a cut. So you can do either one depending on what the distance is between the two. So here he's slightly out of range, so I'm just going to extend my arms and thrust through. Another option would be if I'm here, arms are already extended, I can't reach him, but I can make a small lunge forward and now I can reach him. So it's the same idea. You bind and you thrust through, or you bind and you make a cut in the same motion. Now, one of the things that can happen here is if the first situation I just mentioned is one where he's weak and we are strong. We're able to take control of the center and strike him or thrust at him. But we may end up in a situation where he's in a better position. He's in a position to basically thrust at our face. Let me adjust the height of this. Okay, so now I got a situation here where my opponent has his point in my face. Okay, up a little bit more. So he's got his opponent, his point in my face. So my option from here is to wind. Okay, wind and then thrust. So the purpose of the wind, okay, is to get his weak on my strong and push his point out of my way. So this is an important concept. This is why we wind, because if I don't need to wind, I'm not going to wind. If I'm in the situation where I come into the bind, right now I have weak against weak. There's no reason for me to wind because I can just thrust through. Okay, but if I'm in a situation where I come into the bind and my opponent has advantage, and now he's about to thrust me in the face, I need to get that point out of my face. So I'm going to wind. Okay, and by winding, what I'm doing is I'm putting his weak on my strong, so I have leverage. Okay, and now I can push his blade to the side and thrust through. Okay, so that is the purpose of the wind. Okay, and I'm going to go through all this later on with the buckler, but I wanted to introduce this with the longsword, for the reason that I said that this is explained pretty clearly in Lichtshinauer system. Now let's talk about another situation, another option that we have. We come over here, we're in the bind, okay, and what's happening is my opponent is pushing hard on my blade. He's pushing hard, he's strong, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go weak. I'm going to let his blade slide, and I'm just going to come around and just cut. Okay, so he's pushing on me, right? He's pushing. We're here. I feel him that he's strong. He's pushing down. He really wants to push my blade off to the right. Well, I'm going to give him what he wants. I'm going to let him push to the right and just come around and cut. If I'm able to make it cut, great. If I come up short, I'm just going to follow up with a thrust. Okay, so that's another option. Let's call it option number 2. Okay, so he's strong. We go weak. His blade keeps pushing us off to the side, and then we just take off and come to the other side. Okay, and we cut there. So we'll call that option number 2. Let's talk about option number 3. Option number 3, we're in the middle. We are somewhat equally matched. Both blades are kind of offline. Remember, if that tip was in my face, I'd have to wind. I have to get the tip out of my face. But his tip is not in my face. There's some pressure on my blade, okay? Because it's not as if though there's no pressure. Because if there was no pressure, or if I felt that he was weak, I would just redirect my point and just thrust through. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplier, which means I'm going to turn the sword over and cut. So basically, I'm turning over and cut. So it looks like this. I'm here. The blades are somewhat even, and I'm just going to roll and cut. Roll and cut. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Here, roll and cut. Cut. And if I come up short, I can turn that into a thrust. Okay, if he backs up, I can continue to follow that up. I'm controlling the center, so basically my sword's still in the center. So this is a really small rotation. Okay? It's a cut. It's a small rotation. I want to keep, because I want to control the center. If he tries to thrust through, I have my cross guard here to kind of block it. I can push it offline a little bit. Okay, so we'll call that option 3. Okay. So now let's talk about another possibility from here. Another possibility is that, again, now there's a situation where both points are kind of offline. He's neither strong nor weak. He's kind of firm. If I just, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook with the cross guard, pull it down, and then strike over the top. So we're in the middle. he's neither strong nor weak. He's just kind of sitting there. And what I'm doing is I'm gonna help him out with this. And basically, now as I try to get my as I try to hook him with my cross guard, what I can do is basically I'm just gonna thrust forward. And as I thrust forward, that's basically, it's gonna probably cause him to try and evade that. Okay? And while he's trying to evade that, I'm gonna hook him with my cross guard, rip it down, and then come around and strike. Okay, so so that's another possibility that we have in the bind. Okay, let's apply some of this now to the sword and buckler. Okay, I'm gonna put this down. All right, so let's see how that works out with the sword and buckler. So we come in. Okay, we're here. He's weak. I'm just gonna thrust through. Okay. And the nice thing about having the buckler is going to, you know, I have a little bit more, because I have some defense here, I can change my angles a little bit, you know. I can angle down, I can get to angles that maybe I could not do before, you know, when I only had a long sword. So if we come here, you know, I mean, I can angle down, you know, I can turn to the side, because if I see that, let's say, if I see that he's moving in that direction, I can roll my blade over and I can thrust that way. I can roll it over there here and thrust that way. So you know, just simply by rolling my, you know, moving my hilt back and forth, I get a lot of angles that I would not safely get with the longsword, because with the longsword I didn't have the added defense of the buckler. So this little bit of defense that I have allows me to strike at angles that I could not get before. So let's talk about the second option that I mentioned. Second option, we come into the bind. He's strong, all right. He's pushing hard towards my right. I'm just going to let him take it and just cut over the top. Okay, so I'm just going to let him take it, cut over to the top. Okay, so that's the other option. Oh, I missed the winding option. Let's go back to the wind. We come over here. He's basically thrusting at my face, so he's threatening me with the point. And what I'm doing is I'm going to wind. Again, the point of the wind is to get his point out of my face, and then I'm going to thrust through. Okay, so that's how we're going to use the wind. And then the other option is the duplier. Okay, so as we come here, okay, the blades are offline. I mean, the points are offline. He's neither particularly strong nor particularly weak. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplier. I'm just going to turn my blade like that from here. As we're here, I'm just going to turn it and make my cut. If he pulls back, I'm just going to follow up with a thrust, okay, and push forward. Okay, and let's also talk about the pummel hook. So the nice thing, we come here. Again, he's neither strong nor weak. I can come up, okay, hook him with my, not the pummel hook, I meant the cross guard hook. Come up here, hook him with my cross guard, and then strike over the top. Now, given that I have a buckler, this is one of these times that that I can disconnect my offense and defense. So if I'm here, I can come in, I can basically, you know, I can stop him with my buckler and then strike over the top. So the cross guard hook can kind of serve the same purpose that a press with a buckler would serve. Okay, so that's another option. Now, there's another thing I want to talk about. Another option. Let me put this down. Go back to the longsword. I want to talk about. The striking a Zwerchhau after your initial overhaul. Okay, so we come in. Okay, for whatever reason, you know, I don't feel that a thrust forward will work. One of the options from here is to basically turn to the back edge and strike a horizontal cut to the right side. Okay, so we come in, okay, and I make a cut to the right side. And the key to making this work is, while I'm doing this, I'm keeping my blade between his blade and my body. Okay, so from here, I'm rolling over, and I'm cutting. Okay, now as he moves, the two blades might become disconnected. But the main thing is that I need to keep my blade between. So if I see that he's lowering it, I'm going to lower mine. I want to make sure that it stays. Or if I see that he's going high and over the top, I'll bring mine's even higher. Okay. Let's see how that works out with the sword and buckler. Now, if you notice with the long sword, I was flipping it over on the back edge, and I was also using my thumb to brace it. Now with the longsword, I do have basically two hands that I can put on the blade. With the single-handed sword, in practice, I mean, I know that the manuals show, like, you know, even in the mess techniques, they show a lot of the thumb on the blade as you're making a Schwarzschild. You know, in practice, I have found that I can make the same cut just as well with the true edge without moving my thumb. So yeah, and to me it's just less risk, and it allows me more options. So if I come here and I want to execute that, I'll just make that cut. Okay, so from here, I'll just basically just make the cut. Basically all it is this. From here, we come over here. Okay, so what's happening is as I make this, I'm coming off his blade, but I'm coming off his blade, but staying in the general area, so I still have the same defense, and then I'm making my cut. Okay. And what I find is by keeping my thumb, you know, in the same position, I have a stronger grip, and I'm you know, if he tries to press me or do something, if my thumb is, you know, if I take my thumb and put it up here, you know, I feel that the sword can get knocked out of my hand. I also feel that from this position now to go back to that side, I gotta move my thumb again, and you know, so I feel that from here, with my thumb, you know, closed over the grip, I'm now in a position to come back around to the other side. So I can, you know, I can kind of work out back and forth, left and right. So I feel that you have more options in this particular cut by keeping your hand, you know, keeping your hand, your thumb wrapped around the grip. You know, I'm a believer in, you know, if you can accomplish the same thing in a simpler, more efficient way, you know, I don't see reason not to do it. Okay, so if there's a benefit to using the false edge and putting the thumb over there, by all means, I'll do it. But if I think that I'm accomplishing the same thing by, you know, with a simpler technique, I'll do that just as well. Now there are times that I will use the back edge cut in a Schwarzschild like that. Basically, if I do something like that, it's usually if I'm really in close like this, okay. And what I'm doing is I feel that I really can't turn my hand over, because if I'm in this close, it can be difficult to turn the hand in. So from here, it makes sense to use the back edge, okay, if I'm really that pressed in. And now I'm better set up to come back around and make a true edge cut, okay? So I'm not against using the back edge, making the back edge Schwarzschild, but I will do it in very specific circumstances. Specifically if I'm really closed in, you know, and I can't, you know, I can't get the true edge. I'll basically, then it makes sense to use the back edge, and I really don't even expect it to hit that hard, but I'm really setting up for, you know, to basically to a Krumpau. Really, that's what this is. It's a Krumpau deep into the armpit. But if I can make that, you know, if I can do this from range, okay, from here, there's no reason not to just use the true edge. You know, make the cut. You know, and I'm not really committed to you know, moving my thumb and then having to move it back. So those are my thoughts on that. If you guys have any different opinions, by all means post them. You know, I'm open to different opinions. You know, I don't put anything out there and say this is the way and the one way and the only way. You know, I mix, you know, a lot of the stuff that I'm giving to you guys. You know, it comes from the manuals, but I also filter it through my experience of some 15, 16 years of practical fighting. And I have fought a number of different, you know, I have fought in both HEMA and SCA, you know, outside of those two organizations. So, you know, with different weapons, you know, with steel blades, with wooden wasters, with nylon swords, with padded swords. So I'm filtering everything that I'm saying, you know, through that experience. And I think anybody that comes into this you know, what their background is going to affect how they interpret these manuals. Now, if you've got somebody coming into this with absolutely no experience, and you know, and basically they're just looking at the manuals, and you know, that's the only source of information that they have. I mean, yeah, they're gonna come up with something, you know, they're gonna come up with something that's kind of one-sided as far as their view. And the way I kind of look at this is, you know, let's take this in a modern day context. If I was going to train you guys in something like gunfighting, right? Because I'm also a firearms instructor. Okay, can I throw a manual at you and put everything that I know about gunfighting and put it into a manual and try to teach it to you guys? You know, how well would I be able to teach the fighting style, as compared to, you know, doing some live one-on-one training? And furthermore, let's say that you know, let's say I did put things into a manual. Okay, you know, first of all, I know that I wouldn't be able to put every detail of gunfighting into a manual. You know, and let's say that got that got put away for 500 years, and 500 years down the road, somebody looked at that and tried to recreate, you know, gunfighting in in the year 2019. You know, how well would they be able to do that just based on what I wrote down in the manuals? And the answer is, I don't, you know, I mean, I think they would get an idea, but unless they actually do some live fire exercises, you know, and also some simulations with fake ammunition, okay, they would not be able to really understand, or you know, a modern day gunfighting. Okay, and there's two aspects to this. See, the thing with training is we're either using, you know, real weapons, and fake targets, right, or we're using real people and fake swords. Okay, so it's one or the other. You know, we're never gonna in training, we're never gonna have a situation where we are, you know, hitting real people with real weapons. So there's always that limitation. And it's my feeling that you have to have a combination of both, you know, real people, fake weapons, and then real weapons, fake people, so that you can kind of fill out everything that's kind of missing from doing just one type of training or the other type of training. But there are my thoughts on that. If you guys got any feedback, please post it. If you're not a member of the channel, please subscribe. I'll talk to you guys next time.